Hello and welcome back to New Jacket Sports Weekly. A little bit of a lighter week for Waynesburg sports here on the campus of Waynesburg University. Although the fall season is now officially over as the NCAA Division III Cross Country Championships just came to a conclusion on Saturday. Aubrey Wingert placed 105th out of 293 runners at the event. Joined alongside by Caleb Yager here. I'm Riley Holsinger. Caleb, pretty impressive from Aubrey Wingert this season. Placed 29 spots higher back than she did in 2019 at Nationals.
And that 29 spots up was in the 105th place out of 292 runners, which is really impressive. And she made Waynesburg history by becoming the only Yellow Jacket in the school history to qualify 2 times for Nationals. So just absolutely great job from Aubrey Wingert, and bright things for her and the cross country teams in general. Now we're going to move over to men's basketball, and they had a great showing against the Hiram Terriers on Saturday. I was there with Tanner Saprosky on WCYJ, but all 5 starters got into double digits in terms of points, and just an impressive effort not only on the offensive side of things, but the defensive side of things as well. Yeah,
really impressive defensively. 15 steals in that game. It was just really impressive for Waynesburg there. Matt Popek led all scores with 23 points in that win for Waynesburg. Had 5 steals as well. We normally talk about him being an offensive presence, but he did the job defensively in this matchup. Now Popek only 32 points away from reaching the 1,000-point club here. Just been a really impressive career for Popek. Really impressive game from him on Saturday. Some other key contributors defensively. Najon Kirkman had 4 blocks in that game. Just an impressive job by him to go along with those 12 points and 7 rebounds he had. Jansen Knotts, double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds. Ryan Felberg, impressive in the victory as well. Shot 50%, had 10 points. Bryson Wilt, he was the unsung hero for the Yellow Jackets in that one. 10 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals. Kind of really filling in that Cam Auld role. And speaking about the men's basketball team, they'll play 2 away games this week. They'll play at Otterbein on Tuesday night at 7, and then they'll play at St. Vincent this Saturday afternoon at 3. But talking about basketball, we'll move over to the women's basketball team here. It was a little bit of a rough week for the Lady Jackets. Caleb, 0-3 on the week and 0-4 on the season so far.
And they've just been having a rough time because also they've been on the road for all of these games so far. They had that overtime loss to Hiram in the first game of the season, 89-83. But then they took on Case Western Reserve at home in the home opener at the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse last Tuesday. It was a 91-67 loss, but Brooke Fuller, 10-14 for field goals and 21 points, led all Jackets in scoring. And then they traveled to Houghton in New York. It's about 5 hours away, but they put up a good effort. 63-56 was the final score of that game. And then most recently against Penn State Barron, just a bad loss for them as well, 80-52 loss. And the road games are still going to continue because not only do they have Otterbein on Tuesday, but they also have St. Vincent on Saturday, just like the men's team in those doubleheaders.
Yeah, Madison Dayton, though, has been a bright spot for this team here. The freshmen, kind of a little bit newer with the team, spent the fall season with the volleyball team, but now kind of getting used to playing for this women's basketball team here. Had a pretty impressive performance on that loss on Saturday to Penn State Barron. 10 points on 3 for 9 shooting in that one. Avery Robinson has been a pretty impressive player for the Lady Jackets this season. But we'll move on to the mats here for the final Waynesburg sports we're going to be talking about. The wrestling team competed in the Waynesburg Duels this past weekend. Not a great team performance overall. Team ended up going 1-2, defeated Pitt Bradford pretty easily, 49-6 in that victory. There won 4 out of the 5 matches that happened, not including forfeits. And then the wrestling team had a little bit of a tougher performance, getting shut out by Alvernia and by also Glenville State. 50-3 there. In those 2 matches, Waynesburg was outscored 101-3 in those 2 matches alone. But the bright spots are Caleb, Harley Constable, and Rocky McGeary back for the team.
And Rocky McGeary making his return, and obviously had to shake off a little bit of rust, but you know, in an interview that he had for the Yellow Jacket, he said that the most important thing is just at the end of the season, you got to shake off the rust and you got to just get back on track, and that's what he's got to do. And I trust in Rocky McGeary because, you know, he was ranked as the second best wrestler in all of Division III, so I think he'll make his way back up the rankings. But also impressive has been freshman Seth Evans. He posted a technical fall against Pitt Bradford, and Luke Levanway also had an impressive day as well. And then, like you said, Harley Constable, he was the only guy who had points against Glenville State. Just kind of a rough outing for the Yellow Jackets after those two. But the thing is, Glenville State is Division II, and the only way that you really can get better is if you play against better competition. And the Yellow Jackets have been struggling so far this season in terms of wrestling, but they could probably get back on track as well.
A long season ahead of the wrestling season here. A lot of time to work out all the bugs early on here. I have faith that Rocky McGarry can kind of get back in track here, back to his 38-3 record that he had his freshman season here at Waynesburg. But when we come back on Jacket Sports Weekly, we'll be joined by Tyler Zeman to talk about the men's basketball team.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly on WCTV. Now, the last time that the Waynesburg women's basketball team visited the Hiram College Terriers, they lost that game in overtime 89-83 on November 2nd. But this past Saturday, the men's team visited Hiram, and they went into overtime, but they got the victory, 73-67. And here to break it all down is our analyst, Tyler Zeman. What were some of the things that impressed you from that game on Saturday?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the Yellow Jackets' free throw shooting. They shot a total 80% from the charity stripe in that game. They went 12 for 15, and what really stood out is in overtime, they made 5 of 6 free throw attempts that they got, and that was half the points they were able to put up against Hiram in overtime to really put the game away.
Now, Ryan Felberg was a player who struggled a little bit at times last year with his free throw shooting, came into that game, made a lot of clutch free throws towards the end of the game there. How impressive was that to you that he was able to kind of shake off of his rough performances last year and have a pretty decent performance over this past game?
Well, I think it just goes to show that this team got better over the offseason, that they put the work in, and that they truly want to succeed and better from the spring season. On Saturday, Felberg only put up 10 points. Wasn't his best showing stats-wise, but, I mean, from the free throw line, like you said, that's a big improvement, and it's really the small things that the team has done so far that's kind of helped put them in position so far to win games at the end.
Now, against Penn State Barron, which was their last matchup before Hiram, we talked about how Matt Popek needed to step up for the next game. He went 2 of 11 from three-point range, but against Hiram, he knocked down 3, and all of them came in the first half. So how impressive was his performance, and how critical was it for the Yellow Jackets?
Yeah, he led the team with 23 points. He only shot 3 for 7 from the three-point line, which isn't too great, but like I mentioned in last week's show, this team is not afraid to keep shooting. And we saw that in the Hiram game on Saturday. They shot the ball wherever, whenever, and even when they were not falling or going in, they weren't able to go back down the court again and take another shot.
So another thing that I wanted to talk about that went really well for Waynesburg this past weekend was the defense. 15 steals in that contest. Also, a lot of blocks, 4 from a guy in Dejan Kirkman. How impressive was the defense for you?
Well, defensively, it was the biggest question coming into the season for this Yellow Jackets team was how were they going to manage on defense with their smaller size. And yet, on Saturday, I think it really showed that Hiram is not a small team by any means. They have some very tall and big players. And the fact that Waynesburg was able to match up against them, not afraid to back down or, have to change looks to get certain guys guarding certain guys. Every player was committed. They bought into what the game plan was. They were able to stay focused defensively, and I think that's what really led to the 15 total steals that they had. And it was ultimately what helped swing them into the win column.
And now, besides the starters, there's some guys that are coming off the bench that are producing some quality minutes for the Yellow Jackets. Who are some of those guys that you think have been stepping up and are going to need to step up for the rest of the season?
Well, Stephen Ang, I think, is one of the guys that we talked about it last week. He didn't have too many minutes off the bench. Saturday, he had 14 total minutes. He only had 3 points, but I think you're starting to see some of the rotation that Fusina is putting into this basketball team. Last week's episode, we talked about how there isn't much. They have a lot of depth, but they aren't using it off the bench. And in the Hiram game, I think we saw that they used a total of 4 players that came off the bench. They didn't all put up significant minutes, or they didn't really put up significant points for that matter. But I think for them to have the ability to come on the court and kind of give these starters a breather is what's going to help this team down the stretch.
Tomorrow night, the Yellow Jackets take on Otterbein University, and that game begins at 7 p.m. You can tune in to WCYJ-FM, but when we come back, we'll be talking about women's basketball with Joe Venzel. We're sticking to the hardwood, and we're going to focus on women's basketball now. And here to break it all down is our women's basketball analyst, Joe Venzel. Joe, thanks for joining us. And the men's team has found a lot of success over the past couple of days, but it's been a 4-game losing streak for the women's team to start off the season.
Yeah, it's a tough one, especially starting off with that Case Western loss at home. Starting off at home, you're going to want to really get a run going for that, and they just did not do that. 25 turnovers total for this Waynesburg team, and they really try to score inside and really try to force it inside for those points, but Case Western really big on that front 4. And those 3-pointers not hitting it all for them. And it's just been really tough to start off. And then Houghton, that next game, 63-56 loss. Avery Robinson, though, on the bright side, 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 3-pointers in that one. And Brooke Fuller coming up with the double-double, 16 points and 15 rebounds. And 9 for 9 from the free throw line. But unfortunately, the runs from Houghton in that one, 12-2 in the second to end the second quarter, 16-6 to end the third quarter, and 11-5 to end the game in that one. And Penn State Barron, 80-52 loss. So yeah, not a good start for the women guys.
So in that Case Western Reserve loss this past Tuesday, Case Western Reserve had a little bit of a big lead for most of that game, mostly due to Abby Lawrence's 45 points. But the one thing that head coach Sam Jones was really happy about was his team didn't really show any quit. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that and how it was a bright spot for this team?
Yeah, no, especially with Avery Robinson and Brooke Fuller, the leader of this Waynesburg team, really putting up points in that one. But unfortunately, like I said before, the 25 turnovers is really going to hurt you. But if you have that no-quit mentality with a girl also scoring 45 points on you, if you keep going with that momentum, you can get a little bit of a run to end the game. But unfortunately, Waynesburg just turning over the ball really hurt them on that.
With Houghton and Penn State Barron, a lot of miles are being put on that traveling bus. How much do you think has that played a factor for the Lady Jackets the past couple of days?
Yeah, especially, going from Houghton, New York to Erie, it will take a toll on you, especially back-to-back Friday and Saturday. Girls playing 40 minutes a game, it's really gonna take a toll on you. But Avery Robinson not stopping from the three-pointer. I guess traveling really doesn't affect her. 8 3-pointers in that Houghton and Penn State game total. So yeah, travel will put a deficiency on these girls, but they don't have any quit in them. But, once you get those scores going, hopefully they can turn it around.
So last week we talked about how the bench needed to step up a little bit more. Leighton Croft was one of those pieces that we talked about that really stepped up for Waynesburg in that first game. But another girl really emerged onto the scene for this women's basketball team in Madison Dayton. How great has it been that she's been able to step up as a freshman in only 4 games so far this season?
Absolutely. 10 points in that Penn State Barron game, really setting her starting point for her career. And, you get those minutes as a freshman and really build yourself and keep going through these games coming up in PAC play. Hopefully she can get a lot more minutes and have her shine the rest of the way.
Now, to wrap up real quick, Joe, away at Otterbein on Tuesday night, what are some of the things that they're going to have to do in order to compete in that game?
Well, they've been on the road for the past 4 games, and hopefully, the traveling doesn't really affect them that much. Avery Robinson got to keep scoring those points. Threes are better than twos, guys. So, have her keep shooting threes, and Brooke Fuller obviously dominating the paint. Hopefully a Waynesburg win.
Thank you very much, Joe, for your analysis. We're done with basketball. We're going to go over to Waynesburg Wrestling when we come back with Brock Owen. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Jacket Sports Weekly.
Time to talk about the wrestling team right here on Jacket Sports Weekly, and for that we now bring in our wrestling analysis and expert Brock Owens, who I'm officially passing over the torch here to Brock Owens as the new wrestling expert over here. So Brock, not a great weekend for the wrestling team at the Waynesburg Doles. Ended up going 1-2, but it was really great to get Rocky McEary and Harley Constable back out on the mat.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for the official torch here, Riley. But yeah, it was great to get Harley and Rocky back on the mat. Harley was very impressive, probably the most impressive person on the team this weekend. He went 2-0. He got a tech fall and a decision against a tough wrestler from Glenville State. And it wasn't real close. It wasn't like a one-point match. He won 10-4 in that match against a Glenville State opponent. And Rocky, he came back. It's awesome to see him back since he's, supposed to be one of our big stars. And he got a pin in his first match, and he had a really tough match in that second one. He ended up taking a loss, but it's great to see those two back, and I hope to see them develop throughout the rest of the season.
Now, they got the win against Pitt Bradford, Waynesburg did, but in your opinion, what were some of the factors that contributed to the losses against Alvernia and Glenville State? Not just, close decisions, but just absolute blowouts.
Yeah, well, one of them is the fact that they're both really good lineups. Let's take a look at Glenville State real quick. They had 4 Division I transfers from West Virginia. So they have a lot of really good talent on that team, and the same with Alvernia. When those two teams wrestled, it was a really close match, and it came down to the last couple of matches to decide their duel as well. So both of them have a ton of talent on their teams. But for us, it's really just about a couple things when I talked to Coach Headley after the match. Number one, he stressed that he has to get the guys into their right weight classes. Some of them are in that right now, but some other guys need to drop a weight class to get to where they need to be so that they aren't getting overpowered on the mat. And then another thing is just getting in the shape. And of course that's going to come throughout the rest of the wrestling season. It happens naturally as you do more conditioning and then you get into better shape and you lose weight to go into your natural weight class. So both of those things are going to happen naturally, but they need those to happen before they can be the team that they can be by the end of the year.
And speaking of conditioning a little bit here, just coming from a wrestler perspective, it takes a little bit to kind of get into that conditioning here. And that was something that Rocky McEary mentioned to you after the Waynesburg Doles, is that his conditioning really wasn't where it needed to be right now. And he also said to you that it was just kind of a bad performance from him. But I think that'll aid a little bit better with some better conditioning from Rocky here. So what is that going to kind of really look like for him? Like, what's that timeline going to look like for him to kind of get back to that Rocky McEary of old and to be well conditioned after taking a good bit of time off?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see how long it takes Rocky to get back to where he was, but he will. I'm pretty confident in that. And what he told me is he just has to get back into the right mindset, get back into the groove of things, and get back to believing in what he believed in before, and just be confident when he goes out on the mat. And he also just has to develop his, get his lungs underneath him and get that conditioning, because he was very gassed by the end of that match that he lost. And that's one of the main reasons I would say he did lose it, because he had an opportunity for some takedowns at the end, but he was a little too tired to get it done there. But once he gets that conditioning down, and I think by the end of the season he'll be a good wrestler. He'll be a great wrestler, in fact.
Well, thank you, Brock, and to wrap up his segment right here on Jacket Sports Weekly. But stay tuned, as when we come back on Jacket Sports Weekly, we'll be breaking down the top plays of the week.
It's a Saturday night. You know what that means. Time to party. Sam is having a good time, watching sports, drinking beer, playing Pong. Not a care in the world for Sam. Nobody at the party stops Sam. They let him walk out the door with his keys, even though he was stumbling, having a hard time to stand up. What happened less than 10 minutes later would change Sam's life forever.
It is now time to talk about our top plays of the week right here on Jacket Sports Weekly, so let's jump right into it.
Now with play number 3, it's Aubrey Wingert at the NCAA Division III National Championships. 22:30 was the final finishing time for Aubrey Wingert. She placed 105th out of the 292 runners.
Play number 2 right here on Jacket Sports Weekly, and the women's basketball team had trouble navigating through the press that Case Western Reserve put on them, but not right here. Jackets do a good job getting out of the press here, which leads to Marley Wolf navigating her way through the defense for a quick bucket on that play.
Play number 1 of the week, a really good offensive set for the Yellow Jackets. It takes a little bit of time to set up, but Anika Dansby at the top of the key, Avery Robinson going to the wing, and then Marley Wolf is going to come up and get the ball, fake a shot, gives it to Avery Robinson from way downtown, knocks it in. Great job by Brooke Fuller and Madison Dayton. Take a look at the replay to shut the doors and give Avery Robinson a wide open shot. Jackets unfortunately lost this one. Well, those are our top plays of the week, and when we come back, I'll be doing a play breakdown of women's basketball when we return on Jacket Sports Weekly. And welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. Now it's time for the play breakdown segment of the show, and we're going to be breaking down the women's basketball game against Case Western Reserve. And let's get right into it. So Leighton Croft is out of bounds. The Yellow Jackets are trying to go up the floor. Anika Dansby has the ball, and she's going to pass it to Madison Dayton. Watch Leighton Croft in the circle right there. She's going to wave her hand, and she's going to say, hey, give me the ball. And she goes up the floor, and she stops. Very good job by Leighton Croft not to rush anything and not get into a bad situation. So right here, you see Marley Wolf and the space that she has on the right side. Well, she's going to take that space and use it very well. So she's going to dribble with her right hand and go into the paint. And watch this defender right here. The defender is going to take a step to the left because she's falling for the fake that Marley Wolf puts on her. And then Marley Wolf easily goes up and under and gets the layup to go. Very nice play by Marley Wolf and the Yellow Jackets on that offensive set. Now we're going to take a look at another offensive set here. Madison Dayton with the ball slows it down. Good job to slow down the tempo. Anika Dansby has the ball at the top of the key. There are actually 4 Jackets on the perimeter. It looks like only 3, but Marley Wolf is on the near corner, and she's out of view right now. But Avery Robinson is going to cut through, as you can see her on the screen right there. She's going to be playing an important role. But also watch Madison Dayton on this screen right here. Anika Dansby is going to use that screen and go to the right a little bit. Then Madison Dayton's going to come over and set a screen for Marley Wolf right here, who is in motion. But the interesting thing about this play is that Marley Wolf is used as a decoy. Now, take a look at this space right here between Brooke Fuller and Madison Dayton. They're going to do what's called elevator doors, and they're going to shut that off, and so the defenders can't get to Avery Robinson. Wide open 3. Good shooter like Avery Robinson. That's a great shot right there. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Tune in next week for more Jacket Sports Weekly right here on WCTV.